In order to overcome your fear of being perceived, you have to acknowledge that there is a version of you that exists in someone's mind that portrays some of your flaws and quirks in an overly exaggerated and deranged way, in a way that's not accurate to who you actually are. There are versions of you that currently exist in someone else's mind that are a completely misinterpreted representation of who you are. And you have to be okay with that, because what are you going to do? Go in someone's mind, reach into their neurons, and just start to alter their perception of you? No, you can't do that. The only thing you can do is be okay that this version of you exists. Now, when I say be okay, I'm not saying that you should agree with this version. I'm not saying you should identify with this distorted version of yourself. I'm just saying you simply have to accept the fact that it exists, because you cannot do anything to change that. I know this might be very disheartening for a lot of people to hear, but there are people that just thinks the absolute worst of you. And no matter how perfect you try to come across, no matter how much effort you do into creating a perfect persona for people to witness you as, there are always going to be people that just sees you as absolute garbage. And it's not necessarily a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of who they are. It's a reflection of their beliefs. It's a reflection of their experiences and the way it influences them to have such a distorted view of reality, to have such a distorted view of themselves, to have such a distorted view on you and who you actually are. And I understand this fear all too well, because before I had YouTube, right? But before I even considered the thought of presenting myself online, I was extremely insecure. Insecure to the point where I was also very vain, because I cared a lot about how I looked. I cared a lot about how people saw me. And I really did have a fear of being perceived. Now, when I say I have fully overcome this fear, maybe not fully, but I have conquered it enough to put myself online, to show myself more out in the world without feeling this deep level of cringe, this deep level of resentment towards how I look, this deep level of resentment towards people perceiving me, right? Because that also happened. Not only did I have a lot of hate for myself, but I had a lot of hate for people who perceived me, because like I said, I had hate for myself. So when you are in a state where all you have is hate for yourself, all you could possibly do is project that hate onto other people. And I would do this in very, minor ways, but still very impactful ways. Like if someone were to talk to me, even if they weren't trying to be rude or mean, I would just automatically assume that, oh, they're making fun of me. Oh, they don't like me. Oh, they think I'm ugly, because that's what I thought about myself. I understand this, right? And I'm not trying to make fun of people or make people feel weird about having this fear, having this insecurity, because I understand this all too well, right? I was in your shoes. I completely relate to you. But you need to understand that other people's perception of you have absolutely nothing to do with you. And I know this is such a hard thing to understand, because when people say negative things about us, when even nice things, right, about us, we think it's about us because they're talking directly to us. But you need to understand that no one fully knows who you are. Not even your close friends, not even your close family members, right? They have a version of you in their heads. Some of their versions of you could be a more accurate representation of you compared to others. Nevertheless, it's still a perception, right? It's a mere perception. It's not a full representation of your likeness. The only person that can fully understand who you are is you. And the reason why I said could, right, can potentially fully understand is because there's people that don't even know who they are. And this is the reason why it's so easy for their self-image to fluctuate, because they don't know who they are. I made a video about this already, addressing how, because I didn't have a stable self-image, I used people's negative comments and positive comments also to try to formulate an identity for me, which is terrible, because when you use people's comments of you to determine who you are, this is just self-sabotage, because people's comments about you, they're fluctuating, right? There's not a stable set image people have of their mind. So if you are trying to cultivate an identity based on how people see you, You're just rooting your self-image in instability, in insecurity, in fluctuation, because that is the likeness of other people's comments. It's unstable. It's a unstable or unstable representation of who you are. It fluctuates. Sometimes people will say you're the best in the world. Some people will say you're garbage, right? In order to be confident, let's not even use confident. In order to be secure in yourself, right? For the most part, you have to have a stable self-image. Because like I said, people's perception of you is not you. So you cannot base who you are on something that isn't you. It's like how some people, they have this internet persona and they base this persona, and then when people say negative comments and say, oh, you're this and that, they get really hurt, which is understandable. But this, just like how people's negative perceptions of you are, internet personas, any persona you have, your works persona, your school persona, that is not you. You need to understand who you are before you try to find who you are from people that don't even know you. The only reason why you are afraid of being perceived, you take what people say to you to heart, the positive comments and the negative, is because you believe their comments have some truth in it. If a little baby, right, a little infant, walked over to you and said, haha, you're ugly, I don't like you, and just ran off to his mother, some people would be butthurt by that. I know a lot of people that would be butthurt by it. I probably would be a little, why would you say that, right? But the average person, if that happened, they would just, okay, that's a little weird, but, that's a little kid. What do they know, right? They're 2-year-olds picking their boogers. I don't really care. And they'll just shrug it off. Okay, whatever. Now let's compare that to random people online. If a random person, you put yourself out on the internet, if a random person was like, this girl's the worst, or this boy is the worst, or so whatever, most people would be butthurt, right? If you had a job and your boss, was telling you, oh, you're this, you're stupid, you're blah, 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 most people will take that to heart. Why? It's not just because of the maturity difference between an infant and your boss or people online. It's because we attribute greater value to people online, to your boss, right? Because we think that what they say has truth in it. The reason why you wouldn't really be hurt from an infant calling you ugly is because you're under the impression of what do they know? They're an infant telling me this, right? Their opinion means nothing. Compared to your boss, it's your boss, someone of a high authority, of high power. On random people online, yes, well, maybe they don't have high authority, but they're random people online. They're still people, right? So we will attribute some type of worth. Oh, what they're saying is true. It has meaning. We attribute a lot of worth and meaning to people that we believe has higher influence or more authority than us. Because we think more authority, higher power, more money, more status equals they're better, they're more competent, they know more than us. So if our boss, someone with a high authority, came to us and said, you're stupid, we're just going to say, oh, well, it's true. But it's not true. Having a high authority, having more status doesn't equate to someone being smarter than you, right? Yes, to get the status, you have to have some type of level of smartness, right? But that doesn't mean that they know more about you than you do yourself. There's some people that when they tell you things, they're looking out for your best interests. But there's also people that just tells you mean things just to be mean. Not because it has some truth in it, but they're just a-holes and they want to bring you down. A lot of people are like this. And in order for you to overcome this, you have to know that just because someone's at a high status, that doesn't mean what they're saying is true. And I'm just going to dust what they said off my shoulders, right? This is why I encourage people to not only don't take the negative comments to heart, but also the positive comments as well. And I know this might be a little weird because it's like, what? I should feel really happy when I get a positive comment. But here's the thing. What has the power to control your emotions controls you. The reason why it is still problematic to feel this overwhelming fulfillment and love and just this overwhelming feelings of happiness from a singular positive comment, because it shows that you didn't have that sense of fulfillment, you didn't have that sense of happiness prior to that compliment. You're human, so I'm not telling you to not acknowledge that this made me feel good. I get compliments all the time and I can say, wow, this did make me feel good, but it does not give me an overwhelming sense of fulfillment because I already have that fulfillment within. I don't need validation from the internet. I don't need validation from my parents. I don't need validation from anyone because I have validated myself. And you don't have to, When I say I validated myself, I'm not saying that I think I'm the best in the world, right? I'm just saying there's something in me that has grounded me to know that, okay, well, you know, I don't need, more validation. Like, I already have it within. If you have a stable self-image and you validate yourself, positive nor negative comments will get to you, right? And this is a superpower to have because it shows that it doesn't matter what people say. You will always have this stable self-image. You wouldn't allow people to just corrode your mood or erode your mood. I don't know if I said that properly. And that is a superpower. Most people don't have that. When I was younger, I didn't have that either. I was like a paper, a paper gets just moved by the wind so easily. That was me because I did not have a stable sense of self. Also, this is another thing I want to talk about. You don't have to look the best, be the best, and have the most money to have a stable sense of self, to love yourself. This is a common misconception for a lot of people, right? For me, for instance, I have a very simple life. I'm very boring. Not boring, mundane. My life is very mundane. I don't have that much friends, right? But I would say I'm at peace with myself. Obviously, I'm ambitious. Like, there's more, not to make this video about me, but like, there's more things I do want to achieve, but like, I'm at peace. I have a sense of peace, right? This doesn't come from anything. This literally doesn't come from anything. People need to understand that you can find peace without material things. I know, wow, OMG, I've heard this many times, Are you monk LARPing? Are you Buddhist monk LARPing? Like, I've heard this many times. It doesn't matter. But it's like, it's true. Like, it literally is true. People need to understand this because then you wouldn't be so moved by other people, right? In order to not be afraid of being perceived, you literally need to have a stable self-image. If you don't, it's so easy to, if someone tells you something really bad, it's so easy to believe them because you don't even know who you are. You need to know who you are. Okay, know thyself. There's a Bible scripture that says know thyself. That's important. Like, you really have to understand who you are. Some ways, the only thing I talk about on this channel is meditation because it has helped me. There's many ways to learn to know yourself, but I think that's the number one because you literally, meditation, you sit with yourself. You sit with your thoughts. Like, you confront you because that's who you're battling. Not those negative comments, not those negative people. You're battling yourself. You have to confront yourself, literally. Like, that's literally what you have to do, okay? Because after all, when we talk about your fear of being perceived, fear in general, it comes from you. It lives in you. It's not other people's negative comments that's making you afraid. No, it's you. It's you in your relationship with those negative comments. It's you and how you perceive those negative comments. Because, for example, like, if a person with a stable self-image get a negative comment, they're not going to cry, right? Because it's not the negative comments that's hurting them. It's how you perceive it. Your perception is what is keeping you stuck. Your perception is what is keeping you afraid, not anyone else, right? And that is what you need to learn in order to have a peaceful life, in order to be confident, which is not really confidence, it's just awareness, right? In order to be aware, in order to love yourself more. And the love, when you say love yourself, it just literally means awareness, right? All these words are just a substitute for awareness. But I hope this video helped you. I love making these videos. For some reason, it was easier for me to talk in this video. So I'm grateful for that. And I will see you in my next video. Follow me on TikTok. Join my woman-only server. And yeah, I will see you next week. Bye, Angels. See you guys.